Welcome. I'm Manvi Dhillon, and today Dell and ET Now present Building Future-Ready Enterprises. We all recognize that technology is changing business, and business is changing technology. In this environment, can a business really be future-ready? How can a business be future-ready? We will reflect on these questions with our panel, and it's time to meet them. Ganesh Krishnan, co-founder and chairman of Portea Medical. Partha De Sarkar, global CEO, Hinduja Global. Marius A. Haas, chief commercial officer and president, Enterprise Solutions, Dell Corporation. Sandeep Malhotra, founder and CEO, Home Shop 18. Amira Shah, managing director and CEO, Metropolis Healthcare. And Ninad Karpe, CEO, Aptech. Thank you all very much for being on this panel today. First off, I say something like, technology is changing business, business is changing technology, everyone agrees, but in real terms, Mr. Haas, give us an example that drives home the point.
Well, you start at the macro level where, let's just assume for a second, we want to drive a 7% GDP growth as an overall economic stimulation, if you will. You think about the way to achieve that on a consistent basis is to have technology drive the innovation that brings higher productivity levels, higher efficiency levels across multiple different sectors in the industry. That then enables us to grow, that enables us to create jobs, that enables us to drive entrepreneurship, and that then enables us to hire a more talented workforce. In turn, then, that innovation and that technology helps us achieve new things, helps us achieve new business models that keep driving this engine.
You've painted the big picture, and I'm going to get a sort of granular view from everyone on this panel, and I'd encourage you to speak as honestly as possible on television. But essentially, if I ask each one of you, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Krishnan, first, you know, how do you go about building an organization that is future-ready? What's your response?
I think today, as you look at the opportunities in the startup world where I come from, the biggest impact has happened because of proliferation of mobile, proliferation of social media, broadband, and just sheer smartphone devices available at affordable cost. So using all of this, you can actually build business model. We are no longer talking about technology as an enabler or as a support function, but as something that can define the business model. Let me give an example. In my last business, Tutor Vista, where we used to teach the kids in US using teachers working from home in India, we were basically able to bring together technology, internet, and global resources from countries like India to teach the world. Okay, right? What it did was it changed the personalized tutoring from a $60 per hour business to $100 per month of unlimited tutoring business. So suddenly you see how technology is able to change business model and make a service which once was privilege of the super rich available to every family in the US.
I accept the point that technology can totally change and disrupt business models. Right now I'm fishing for examples of how you individually at your organizations are doing things on the technology front and beyond the technology front to make your organizations sort of as strong as possible to cope with the future. So future ready, Mr. Sarkar, what are you doing?
The ability to take small investments, the ability to be flexible, not to get married into platform till you're sure of the scale at which your new business model would be. That's important for me, and that's what we're trying to look at. Pay-per-use rather than having to invest big dollars into big technology that you're married forever.
Well, some interesting thoughts out there, and it'll be fun to get counterpoints of view from the panel. But before I do that, the fundamental question. For an organization like Home Shop 18, how do you become future ready today?
Well, actually, future ready is not just today, it's every day. In our case, it was actually solving a consumer need And fundamentally, from an India point of view, the biggest need was difficulty of distributing products on a nationwide scale. Since the digitization was happening, all we did was convert the digital tools like television, mobile, and web as alternative channels of distribution.
Sure.
And we've used technology to really do that. Fundamentally, what are we doing? We're distributing products in more than 3,000 cities in the country. So on one level, we're using technology to get scale and reach. At the other level, we are doing the softer things of changing the DNA of the culture of the organization. Most organizations from the past, from my example, were driven by processes and controls. I think what we are trying to do now is to really decontrol the entire system and bring in flexibility in structures, in decision-making, in roles, everything, because that's the only way you'll be future-ready. For the simple reason, because the change is happening so quickly, redundancy of technology is so quick, that if you don't have adaptability in your DNA as an organization, I think you're never going to be future-ready.
And that's a tougher goal, in a sense, to achieve. Before we flesh that out, Ms. Shah, from you, when you think about the future and about building a sustainable organization, what do you focus on?
So I think to me, future ready means being customer ready, right? And your customer, for example, in healthcare is not only a patient, it's a doctor, it's an insurance company, it's a hospital. We've got multiple different stakeholders that we actually deal with. And if I think about from just a patient's point of view, you know, even 2 years ago, what did it mean to walk into a path lab, right? It meant walking into a location, waiting for 10 minutes, giving your blood, finding out when you'll get the report, giving your payment, coming back, then going to the doctor, and everything is on paper. There's nothing digital, nothing which is ready for you to store. And the question is, what is it that the customer is going to need tomorrow, and how am I going to give it to them? So even today, a patient can sit at home, can get on their mobile app, a Metropolis mobile app, can say, I need a home visit tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock, sit in their pajamas, somebody will show up at your doorstep, collect your sample. Within the next 6 hours, you'll have the report on your mobile app and your email and email to your doctor and stored for you, so that you don't need to do any of that. And I think that change, exactly like he said, the consumer need is going to keep changing. And are we able to keep understanding what the consumer wants and deliver it to them before anybody else can? That's future ready.
It's interesting. You're both making the same point. One of you is looking at it from the consumer lens, and one of you is looking at it from the organizational lens. But essentially, the fundamental points are being echoed. Mr. Karpe, for the future, AppTech, and the poll ends with you. So your job is to come up with something completely different from what the panel has said so far.
They've all said what I had to say. But for me, we have to be future ready or dead. There's no option. So, you know, it's not, should an organization be future ready? The answer is
yes, of course. We all agree. But how?
So I'll give you a 2-minute commercial on AppTech, then I'll tell you how. So we have
a 5-second commercial on AppTech, and then how?
So we have a very large base outside India. Not many people are aware. We've got 1,000+ centers in India, 200+ in China, and 200+ in 40 countries. All of these are emerging countries, Nigeria, Mongolia, all across. The issue was when technology has become such an important part of our business, how do you make it future ready? As in, the girl or boy who comes to us has a simple need. She or he wants a better standard of living. And our job to train her or him to get a better job and improve standard of living. It's a very simple concept, but it requires a lot of effort. They come to us for 2 years, 3 years. So technology is making such a huge difference. We are reaching out, let's say, a girl or boy in Nigeria because of the problems they've had. We're not able to ship books, trainers. We have now gone entirely digital, so they are able to access the latest content, the latest videos on a very thin, kind of a pipe, thin. And technology is getting better. Trainers is a big issue across the world, not just in private sector, all across. How do you update them? So technology, again, playing an important part. Earlier, we used to all tell them to come to India once a year. So in every facet, from acquisition to delivery, satisfaction, I don't think there's any part which is not touched. This afternoon, in fact, 4 o'clock, we issued a press release. AppTech is, tied up with a company called HandyTrain to provide on the mobile phone training. This will be for students, inside, outside. So, we are all constantly thinking of what next. So what next after mobile phone? Ganesh alluded to mobile phones, and that's critical. But We are thinking, okay, mobile phones, 800 mil, 900 mil. After that, what? 3 years down the line, what will happen? So that's being future ready.
Mr. Krishnan, I really want to understand. I get a sense here that the majority view is that being future ready essentially means, ramping up on the technology. It can be sort of flexible technology. That's a colloquial way for me to describe it. But ramping up on technology, is that a fair statement and assertion to make?
Yeah, I think, no, I disagree with that slightly. It's not ramping up of technology. I think it's using technology in a very different way than what we are used to in the past. I think that is critical. Let me try and explain, and I will not do a commercial break here. Let me actually give examples. It's about using technology in the real time to run your business, and using technology in real time to be able to take decisions on the fly, okay, right? Which is very different than the yesteryears where we are using technology as a supportive tool, as a decision-making tool, as a decision support system, to use a jargon, okay, right? For example, in a Bombay-based startup which does vertical marketplaces for used bikes, okay, right? They actually give you a potential buyer the ability to do a virtual test drive of a bike before they actually get to see it or to buy it, okay, right? And this is happening today, here, now, okay, right? And it's just a 3-month-old startup, but they're doing it. In Bangalore, we have an internet-only food company called Fresh Menu, wherein we deliver food to consumers within 30 minutes of their ordering. Fresh food, no preservatives, no frozen stuff. The way we do it is by using technology. So what happens is you have centralized kitchens, you have vans that carry the food, keep the food hot, and the last mile is done by two-wheelers, okay, right? So when a consumer orders on the app, the two-wheeler guy, the last mile delivery boy in the GPS knows where the customer is. The van knows where the customer is. The van starts moving towards the customer. And for that movement, it also gets a feed from a real-time traffic site called Trafline, okay, right? Which provides, so based on the traffic site, based on the location of the consumer, based on the location of the van and the two-wheeler boy who's going to pick it up and deliver, all of them adjust themselves so that the 30 minutes can actually happen. While this is happening, 2 other customers' orders, okay, right, at the same time. Mm-hmm. They also have the same service level that it has to be delivered within 30 minutes. Otherwise, we take a penalty. So in order to achieve that, automatically the routing of the truck and the routing of the last mile delivery boys changes, because between the first order, within 2 minutes, 2 other people have ordered. Now, this is really real time. This is future ready. Same thing if you wind back even 3 years back. None of this would have been possible.
So none of this would have been possible 3 years ago because there wasn't the kind of deployment of technology that is available today. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, at the grassroots, for the business level, for the delivery boys to the vans.
Okay. Mr. Sarkar, do you need yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add.
Yes, sure.
I think there are also 2 other things. One, I think what Ganesh was saying, the pace of change that is happening is so much faster than it ever was. And second, technology is an enabler. It's not just a function in a company any longer. I think it has to cut across every aspect of the business. I mean, if you're a supply chain or a logistics guy, but you're not in tune with the latest technologies there, I think you're going to miss the boat. Same is the case with any other function, whether it's finance, commercial, any other. So technology is really the cement that's holding everything together, is the enabler of change. And it cuts across the company and is no longer just one department which, was there till some time back.
Okay, point well taken. And I'm going to ask you, honestly, do all business leaders in your organization, in organizations that you encounter, do they all embrace digitization technology in the way that you have painted, which is the ideal way?
No, they don't. I think it starts from the top. All of us are looking and searching for technology, but are we truly thinking solutions and then finding technology? So to your question, is it accepted? Is it well entrenched in every function at all levels in the company? Maybe not. But that's where you have to
That's the
really
goal.
change the organization if you truly want to be future ready.
Mr. Sarkar, do you need a sort of long-term disciplined approach to technology? I'm asking you this question with an agenda because the sense I got from you was that, you would say no. And I want to take that argument further. What's the approach to technology? If I say long-term and disciplined, does it resonate?
Well, it does, because if you're making big investments, and for me, that's the first hurdle I need to cross, that I need to convince myself that I need to make a big investment for one particular technology, and that doesn't have a downside in the future, right? Once that hurdle is crossed, I guess it's an easy thing to do. I think the other point that I would like to make out here is that when we are talking about, I think the question of leadership that you brought up, I find that many of us have grown up in a world which is changing fast. Some of us have adapted quickly to the fact that it's changed, and some of us have remained conventional. So when it comes to flexibility, when it comes to workforce flexibility, the current technology that we are trying to struggle to give an answer to is how do you provide a flexible workforce that can ramp up and down by the hour? And that's when the technology that we are trying to figure out is work at home. How to find virtual people who can log in at any point of time, depending upon what time of the day you need that person to be available to do that piece of work. Now, in a conventional command and control environment in which factories have worked before, having an agent sitting 100 miles away, 1,000 miles away, managing productivity, managing training, making sure he or she motivated is a mindset change for leadership, right? So that's, again, a different dynamic that we're dealing with as we are building organizations for the future, making sure that your leadership is attuned to how technology is fundamentally changing, how you can make your workforce more productive.
Mr. Haas, Dell puts this proposition forward that, integrated thinking and integrated technology are essential to building future-ready enterprises. What does that mean?
There are two different ways to look at it. There's the integrated from a horizontal value chain perspective, as described earlier, about how all the different pieces need to be connected and well-informed to make faster business decisions. And then there's the other element of from a technology stack or a verticalized integration about most of us spend our time thinking about what is the business problem I'm trying to solve? What is the business outcome I'm trying to achieve for my shareholders, for my customers, for my institution, if you will. So you spend more time thinking about the workloads and the applications you need to make available for your customers internally and externally. And you think more about, well, how do I secure that? How do I use the information that those workloads collect? And how do I disseminate that? And how do I have a seamless and very agile infrastructure that I can provision on the fly to be able to run those workloads extremely effectively? Right? So it's the kind of four core buckets of, have I transformed my environment to be future ready on the application side and on the infrastructure side? Am I connecting or am I bringing together all the pieces of the value chain? Am I then informed by getting the data to make faster and better decisions? And last but not least, am I securing the environment so that my data is protected and also my customer information is protected? All those pieces have to come together. And we all have a different stage at which we believe we're future ready. So there isn't one answer.
Exactly. And that's why I was trying to get a sense of exactly what future ready means to each one of you. I'm not asking the tough question, are you future ready? I'm just asking conceptually what it means. Mr. Karpe, there's, again, a lot of consensus on the fact that social, mobile, analytics, cloud, they're changing, the way businesses function. Even a non-tech person like me can attest to that phenomena. But what, in real terms, does it mean, say, for an AppTech?
So I would like to add a dimension, and I'll come to it, maybe my friend Ganesh can add to it. In this whole discussion on technology, future ready, to my mind, the most important part is talent and creating right people to take the organization forward. And that again links to what you're saying, because how people react to these technologies. So for example, in our organization, we have allowed so social media is open through the day. So hypothetically, anyone can come and just be on Jabong the entire day, or Flipkart, or any of the sites, and we don't stop it. And we believe we should trust people that they come and they will do a good job. So human behavior, right talent, and their responses to this technology ultimately ensures the delivery. So talent and people, this is going to be the biggest bane of this country and countries across the world of cultivating the right people. 80% of our kids drop out by the time they reach class 8, and for girls it's 89%. After that, again, there's a massive dropout. So, I mean, you see the statistics. By the time you get someone whom you want to hire, you really require a lot of scrubbing around. And then to ensure that this girl or boy is attuned to technology and behaves to technology rationally in the best interest of the company is all the more difficult.
It's a tough ask. And I see Ms. Shah nodding her head. I mean, can you share your own thoughts on that part of it?
You know, unfortunately, healthcare has been a traditionally very stodgy industry. It's been very slow to move, slow to adapt, and even today, there's no digitization of anything. So today, it still works, you know, very, very sort of traditional methods. Talent is a huge issue in healthcare. You don't get people who medically can think in a business context. So I think for us, you know, I totally resonate with the point that it's very, very difficult to get and keep good quality talent with us. And we still haven't seen technology play the revolutionary kind of role that we are talking about in other industries play in healthcare yet. And that's still to come. And I think it will happen, but it will happen over the next few years.
Same thing with education.
Yeah, because these are
still
all
to come. Let's see
traditional
if Mr.
industries.
Krishnan can throw in a few counter examples to the assertion you made.
Yeah, I think, I agree that healthcare has been lagging behind in terms of adoption of technology. If you take an example, as compared to, say, banking or travel industry, which has been in the forefront to adopt. Yeah, unfortunately, education and healthcare has been lagging, but I, as an entrepreneur, see that as the opportunity. Portia Medical, for example, it's a health tech company. So we have 2,000 clinicians doing 50,000 home visits every month. All of them carry a smartphone, okay, right? So the entire protocol that what they are supposed to do at site of the patient at home is actually downloaded there. So, and because it's GPS enabled, we know even logistically whether the person is visiting on time, when did the visit start, when is the visit ended, and we also know if he has left the place of the patient without taking, say, for example, sugar reading, he has not updated it. So therefore, that is where the next 5 to 10 years of opportunity in healthcare is there, courtesy smartphone. That's one example. Other thing that we have done is launched point-of-care devices which monitor the patient, and through the cloud, we are able to record it centrally and be able to intervene proactively with what we call as personalized medicine. Again, all of this, including the sensors, wearable devices, all of this is new. So the assertion that it has been slow is correct, but the opportunity there, like in education, just give me a minute, is huge, because the education example that Ninad gave is very true. The solution to that is, how do you engage today's generation with education the way they would like to consume, which comes back to today's kids, today's generation likes social, they like peer-to-peer learning, they like gamification, they like to be acknowledged, they like it to be interactive, they want to be clapped at, they want to publish their score, they want to invite their friends to play. Bring all the principles of this into education. Then you have an engaged audience, okay, right? The old sage on stage thing is gone. Same thing is in healthcare. The patient wants to be involved in the treatment, which is not the case there. So that's where the opportunity is.
One quick yes or no answer. The point that they were making is that, you know, feeding all of this change, feeding this opportunity, do you have the right people who are tech-armed, business-savvy to drive this change? I mean, what's your experience been?
Yeah, I think that is actually, we don't have the people, but I don't think we need the people, okay, right? The solution is not there. The solution is to be able to enable the common front-end person to be able to use technology seamlessly. I'll give you a couple of examples.
I'm going to interrupt there just a moment, just to bring Mr. Malhotra in as well, simply because I want to understand. I think Mr. Krishnan's already sort of opened up that discussion, but to really understand what, social, what mobile, what analytics, what cloud have done to the Home Shop 18 business, how you leveraging data, for example. Just give us some specific instances.
Okay, for us, real-time data is everything. If you don't have real-time data, you can't drive productivity. I'll give you an example. On the web or the mobile is a slightly different situation, but just look at television. On television, the biggest issue we have is that you can expand your distribution, you can expand your workforce, you can expand your product mix, but what you can't expand is the 24 hours that you have in a day. So fundamentally, you've got to improve productivity of every minute that you're selling. Now, in that minute, you have to keep a track of all your business that is happening. So you need real-time information with all your warehouses, all your inventories, right up to the producer and the anchor who's selling, so that at any given second when the inventory runs out, you don't carry on selling the product, but you move to the next product. Now, this can't be done if you don't have real-time data. And it can't be done if your real-time data is not connected to every warehouse, every vendor, the entire supply chain, all the way up to your production studios, and which could be across geographies. So for us, real-time data and building that platform was the basis on which we can today do the kind of business we do.
I wanted to get a response from Mr. Sarkar as well as to, to what extent do you feel the impact of social, mobile, analytics, cloud in your work?
So that's pretty big. Let me just stick to analytics for a moment. We have about 34% of our revenues come from servicing the US healthcare market. And we pay out about $1 billion in claims, insurance claims, every month. So over a period of 12 months, we pay out close to about $18 to $20 billion, right? Now, what we do is essentially process claims, pay or deny. And the whole analytics around why claims get denied, because here's a hospital which has done a service, has asked for a payment, and the insurance company, I'm acting on behalf of the insurance company, and I'm saying that the claim is not proper, and therefore I can't pay. Now, that's noise in the system. A service has happened, the hospital needs to be paid, and the insurance company is saying that this is not. So the whole analytics that goes behind why a claim has got denied, why the insurance claim was, what's the right way to put in an insurance claim to make sure that it gets paid, it's huge big data. And we're talking about millions of transactions that's happening in the US healthcare market, which is a huge market. So analytics plays a big role in giving that insight to the provider community and saying that, hey, to make sure that you get reimbursed for the work that you've done, these are the things that you're not doing right. And that's resulting in the denial. That is a cash flow issue for you because the patient's out of the door. You've made the service, patient's out of the door. You're trying to recover the cost that you've done. And if you follow these things, so that's where big data and analytics play a big role in how we are now able to influence the outcome of that whole interaction between a payer and a provider of the healthcare service.
Right. What about Metropolis Healthcare?
So, analytics is a very interesting area because we've seen it play such an important role. So a couple of things, like we're doing some very, very complicated genome sequencing, right, which can tell you basically genetically, prescriptively what's going to happen, or what are the inherited diseases that you have. And gene sequences sometimes can be so complicated that from the manual eye, you're actually not able to get enough data to interpret it. We're now using bioinformatics to actually be able to take that data and be able to spin it and give you results that are that accurate, that then make you determine whether you should, have the baby, not have the baby, or any other condition. The other thing is, for example, by looking at patterns, like if a patient's diabetic, today I can tell you in which part of the country, for what age group, for one particular sex of one particular community, what is the average cholesterol level, right? Because we're able to draw out those patterns in medical information, which becomes then useful for a more accurate diagnosis. So I think from this usage of analytics, I think it's going to make healthcare far more precise.
And you could be setting public health agendas.
Exactly.
Mr. Karpe, in the AgTech world, how does this play out?
Analytics or social?
Well, I mean, you could pick any of those four? The abbreviation commonly used is SMAC.
So because we have young kids, relatively, which are 16 to 24, for them social world is a very critical world. It's no longer, they need on a daily basis some so you have to keep giving them that satisfaction. The social part of it has become very critical. So what we're trying to do is not just give a good education, but a wholesome education in terms of the experience. And that experience, they count not just a cafeteria,
So
the events.
allow for the social element.
It is very critical.
In education, which, conventionally all of us would have said, how did that happen?
Correct.
In the schooling environments that we've been in.
Can I make a comment out here
yes.
on the social, which I didn't touch on? One of the things that we're finding about IT and social and mobility is all of that. Is a lot of exciting work around IT in the social and mobility space is actually happening in startups. It's not happening in big IT necessarily. A lot of very exciting work is happening in startups. And our endeavor has been, therefore, to be able to tap into that startup network to understand what's happening where and how do we blend our service with that technology in. So that's becoming a crucial differentiator because the kind of stuff that's happening in the startup network is just amazing. And it's not big IT, it's small IT.
Okay, this is a perfect moment to get Mr. Haas in. How is technology keeping pace with all of the disruptions? And I call it disruptions because clearly social and mobile and cloud are presenting a set of disruptions that no one's seen and you can't even predict. So how is technology keeping pace?
Well, I think the first and foremost, the role of the CIO has changed. So CIO is so different in the sense that before it was perceived as almost a support function. Now it's perceived as a key business enabler. And when you start to have social media, analytics, all becoming a conversation that happens amongst the executive ranks in an organization, it automatically enables the CIO to really better serve the business, right? In the sense that from an analytics, from a social media perspective, usually it's the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, that's really wanting to understand what are the behavioral patterns of the customer base. Who is using our products? What are their styles? What is their geographic? What are their genders? All that information in order to try to generate marketing campaigns that will more effectively target the profiles of the products or services that we want. Same conversation now around security, right? Where is the risk profile that our organization is willing to have? We all know we'll never be ahead of it. Right? We all know that the cyber threats that are out there will keep coming. But how can we get as proactive a security profile as possible to minimize the risk that we have as an organization? That becomes a conversation, not just within the CEO and his or her staff, but it's also a board-level conversation. So you now have the CIO is a critical component of the core parts of the business conversation, and technology is a key enabler for every one of those discussions.
Ganesh, you have a vantage point, Comment on whether you see that happening in India, where the CIO is becoming a critical part of that top-level conversation, top management conversations.
I think it is happening almost by force, okay, right? There's really...
Because that's how Mr. Haas has described it. It's just happening, it's not a deliberate move, it's just happening.
It's as if there is really no choice, okay, right? That is, and we referred to this earlier, that you can't have a bunch of IT people in the back office as a support function trying to develop technology. Technology has to be done at the grassroots level by the people who are actually delivering and the consumers. Increasingly, like you see in airlines where people, you can go to a kiosk, print your own boarding pass. The same thing few years back was being done by people. Okay, right? You're saying there's no value addition that the person behind the counter is doing in an airline, that you can't do it yourself. All that is required is you do everything and drop off your bag. That's the only thing that's required. The same thing that we see is happening, because of which the CEO role is changing. So what's happening here? You want the consumers to do part of the work. You want the front-end people to do part of the work. And that is increasing. Today you see auto drivers, cab drivers using an app. They may not know internet, they may not open a website, but they're using an app to be able to know, to transact with the consumer, to know where to go and pick it up. And we see that in Big Basket, the delivery boys using it across the board. And we see in healthcare, we want the patient to be able to manage. Right?
And they are.
Yeah, and they are. And they are capable. But what we have done is we have not assumed that they will be tech savvy to be able to open up a website, boot up a system and all of this. Give them an app. In one of our ventures where we have plumbers and electricians as the suppliers talking to housewives, people are using native language apps. So we have enabled native language apps on both the phones, smartphones, so that you don't even have to know English. Okay, right? You can speak in a native language. I need this service, describe the service. The plumber responds in a native language, or he can write it out, which the app will translate and will speak it in a voice. It's already happening today. Because plumbers and electricians, you don't expect them to be tech savvy.
I think in all the new age digitally linked organizations which are being set, the quality of the CIO is one of the fundamental things that most investors are looking at. I think that's how important the CIO has become today. Other than the founders, one of the standard questions that an investor normally asks is, who is the CIO and the quality of, or the background of the CIO? Because that has become the backbone of a new age organization. I think so it's become a very important role.
Well, it's an interesting lens through which you're looking at it. I think we have the attention of everyone in the room.
Well, think about it. Especially in healthcare, I have seen medical professionals or doctors that were so passionate about delivering patient care at a very different level that they became, over time, the CIO in the company or in the hospital system, because they were able to translate the experience that they're looking to deliver into technology, obviously with the help of a lot of very smart technology folks. But that was the passion, knowing that they could achieve their dreams, but they had to be enabled through a broader set of technology capabilities.
Mr. Karthik?
So just 1 minute, just to add, what we've done in Aptech is, you keep asking, is CIO important, strategic, how important? I have actually combined the roles. The Chief Strategy Officer is my CIO. So there's no, you just can't say they're not together. So there's one gentleman who handles strategy, and he's a CIO as well.
Misha?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in healthcare, as he was sort of talking about it, as we mentioned, it's a very traditional industry in general. And companies, but that's where the opportunity is. And companies like ours that have actually used technology to differentiate as a business model have obviously seen that, huge benefit, and we've therefore become leaders in the industry. But still, compared to the new age companies, there's a huge opportunity upward. What I think we're not finding is the guys, the CIOs in the companies like Uber and Flipkart and all the new age companies actually come to more brick and mortar companies which are leaders and say, let me take this to the next level. And I think when that starts to happen, we'll see this revolution which is happening only now in startups actually start to expand across the country. That movement is still slow.
Well, he's actually the chief enabler or chief solution provider. So he's the one who is actually finding you the solutions, whether it's customer service or it's business efficiency.
I'm going to steer you all towards a more somber note, which is the cost of technology. And, urge you to be as honest as possible as you sort of pursue an agenda of greater technology, greater flexibility, building future-ready enterprises. Does the cost aspect of it come in the way? Does it act as a bit of a speed breaker? Ganesh?
Yeah, I think, today if you look at it, because of the computing power is on the cloud, right? We have seen, I'm talking from my startup experience of starting 10 different businesses over the last few years, the cost of technology actually has come down as a part of startup, because you can shift instead of a server-centric monolithic organization, you can use computing power on the go, pay-per-use, on license basis, on the cloud. So that has really helped. And two, obviously the advancement of technology that made the cost of the PC, thanks to people like Dell, and the cost of smartphones and mobile phones coming down consistently has also helped. So from our point of view as a startup, ecosystem, I'm very happy with the continuously reduction cost of technology. What I don't like is increasing cost of CIOs or CTOs. Right? Okay, right? So that has kept overplays of inflation, but they deserve it because this is such a core.
Well, you can't place CIOs on a pedestal and not have an associated higher cost with that.
Let me just add to what Ganesh is saying. I think it's not so much about cost. I think when one is evaluating technologies, it's more about the flexibility of the technology that you're bringing in, because now you need technologies which can interface with multiple platforms. Earlier, you had technologies which were pretty rigid. I think that's what one is.
That's building that flexibility come at a higher price.
Absolutely. And earlier, we would have thought about an ERP system, which will take crore of rupees. Then you hire an implementation for ERP, which is multiple of crore of rupees. Today, you can get pay per license. You don't need an ERP of the traditional sense. You can get it per 5 people can get an ERP license and start off pretty quickly on the cloud. But that has phenomenally changed. Earlier, startup ERP was unthinkable. Today, you have light ERPs.
Yeah, and I think for technology, again, the big thing that's important for us going forward also has to be the interoperability, right? So in a mobile world, I mean, you're still struggling with iOS, Android, forget BlackBerry, even though BlackBerry is my favorite, and Windows, right? So let's say in my situation, I love the Mac. The whole enterprise is on Microsoft. And the whole mobility platform, most phones are Android, right? And therefore, to just get a mobile collaboration solution, there is no perfect answer. It's a big failure point of getting interoperability across these 3-4 major dominating platforms today. It's too many bugs and glitches. It's impossible to collaborate.
Also, the pace of change is so quick, so rapid, that if you focus on cost, I think change already happened. So I think it's more about...
but the cost is also a reality of it. And you are seeking to achieve flexibility. You want interoperability. You want all of those things. And there could be a hefty price tag associated. But let me see what Mr. Karpe has to say on that.
Yeah, cost, is important, but it becomes a big issue, and Ganesh will know, it becomes a big issue if the CIO reports to the CFO. Now, that kind of organization, it becomes an issue. But otherwise, it is, nowadays there's so many flexible bodies.
So let me not sort of belabor the point. Clearly, cost is not a speed breaker for anyone on this panel.
No,
is that fair to say?
That's right.
What about security? How preoccupied are you with security, data security, for example, Misha?
For us, hugely, right? Because when you're dealing in healthcare data, every patient's information is extremely confidential. You need to follow all kinds of standards, all kinds of global protocols to make sure that there's no pilferage of data, no leakage of data, and that becomes a crucial issue. As far as cost goes, I just want to mention that to me, I find in technology, the biggest issue is the cost of how stuck you are once you get into something. And to me, that's the biggest cost. It's the opportunity cost. Because it almost seems like once you roll out something, once you're in, you're really in. It's like marriage. You can't seem to get out unless it's a really bad, ugly divorce. And to me, that's the biggest issue with technology. And if things are moving to a more variable way where you can move in and move out at comfort, then to me, that actually reduces all other costs automatically.
Mr. House, would you like to come in here to sort of reassure them, in a sense, that the way technology is shaping up, it can actually cater to all of their objectives, which range from flexibility, interoperability, easy in, easy out, some common themes, recurring themes?
No, sure. Just tying back to the previous dialogue, I don't think I've met a CIO yet that doesn't want to spend more on security. But the only way to do that is to make sure that you're extremely cost efficient on everything else you do. Right? Because it's typically, you have to make some trade-offs. And hence, the more you can drive an extremely efficient baseline infrastructure, the more you can spend on innovation, which is where we'll deliver differentiation, and the more you can spend on making sure that you protect that differentiation and secure it, as an example, if we go back to that capacity, that conversation. But from a technology perspective, and it goes back to being future ready. It is, again, it's a journey, and there are multiple components of it. And we're all understanding as to how will technology enable those. And we need to define at what pace, at what speed, at what agility we need to make sure that our businesses are competitive in that market. It's always a great conversation to have, and you go back to what is ultimately the business outcomes you're trying to achieve, and then we can help figure out, okay, what are these of the framework that I laid out before, how do we best help you solve those business outcomes within that?
Well, this is then the perfect time to pause for a moment and ask each one of you on the panel to sort of summarize just how you're going about being future ready. You've touched upon various aspects of it in the course of this conversation, but if you had to distill it down to 2, 3, 4 pillars, what would they be? Mr. Karpe, would you like to go first?
Sure. So, I think it's impossible to be totally future ready. The issue is how much you can be future prepared to be future ready. Technology will probably play 80% or 70% role in that, and one has to keep thinking of what next, and that's how we at Aptech try to think what next. And I alluded to in terms of what next in each area, which is customer satisfaction, acquisition, delivery, internal processes, all of that. For each of these components, you can't be an organization one solution for all. Every component has to be looked at carefully, and that's the only way to, in our mind, that's the way to kind of get the whole piece together.
Misha?
To me, I think there's sort of 3, 4 things that need to be done. I think one is to constantly stay very connected to the customer and the consumer to see what the needs are and what keeps changing. And I think that's very, very crucial. I think number 2 is if there's a choice between investing in technology or investing in people. And I don't mean people, I don't mean the leadership team, I mean numbers of people. My mantra would always be invest in technology and really keep that as the strength and the core of the business. And I think third is keeping it very, very close to the head of the business. Keeping technology as a sort of right hand and keeping it very close to the CEO or the MD of the business, I think would be the 3 things. And the rest will just keep adapting.
Sandeep?
Well, actually, it's all about adaptability and flexibility, nothing else. So I would say it's about learning, unlearning, learning again without losing momentum. And somehow compelling people to make mistakes, which I think is all right, as long as you don't repeat mistakes. Because once you keep making or trying to make mistakes, you're fundamentally trying to find solutions and innovating. That's culturally what we are trying to inculcate in the entire organization, and it cuts across every function.
On a lighter note, even tolerance for costly mistakes?
Well, if you start putting too many controls and filters on that, people will stop trying to do something different. And the moment they'll stop doing something different because of a fear of cost or something else,
then you've lost your goal.
Then you've lost the goal.
Ganesh?
I think one is for building scalable organization where you can scale without compromising on quality. Have technology in every aspect of the business. Before you scale, put the technology first and then scale later. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is push the technology to front end rather than being at the back end. Front end meaning to the people in the front line in an organization and also to the customer. And between them, they will be able to ensure that the technology is used effectively and efficiently to solve the problem rather than it being in the back end. Don't be afraid of technology. Adopt it because the coming generations, even the current generation and the future generation, will be so tech savvy, right? That there is no other option but to have technology as the core of the organization, the way you do business.
Mr. Sarkar, key pillars for a future-ready organization. Summary thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I completely echo what Ganesh just said. For me, it's about leadership thinking, and therefore the whole spectrum of leadership being comfortable with technology. And that's a wish list item. It's not that you will get that all the time. You will have a whole spectrum, people who are early adopters, people who love to experiment, people who are good leaders but not necessarily comfortable with technology. But they're very, very good leaders. They're very good people managers. So right now what I'm trying to toy with is trying to see how we can mentor those good people leaders who are not necessarily comfortable with technology, get mentored by people who are younger than them. It's a completely reverse mentoring thing. You typically have gray hair mentoring young people. I'm trying to see if there is a model that can be built which is reverse mentoring, which is having young people mentor some of our good leaders or good people managers to say that, hey, technology is something that you need to understand.
That's an interesting approach. What is clear is that the best legacy for any management team to leave is a future-ready enterprise. And when the only constant you have is change, I guess that's the only sustainable approach. Thank you very much for joining us on this joint presentation by Dell and ET Now on building future-ready enterprises. And thank you very much to the panel for joining us today. Thank you.